In 20 plus years of working with athletes, I can tell you that most of the time I can trace back performance, injury, and technical issues back to basic physiology. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you our nutrition and hydration system we use with cricketers in-house. So if you're new to the show, hi, I'm James Breese, and this is Blackboard Friday, our weekly show where we share our frameworks and systems to help you become a better cricketer. Now, if you remember, if you've been watching all the videos so far, you'll know that technique is the output, okay, in terms of cricket. So everything drives to help you improve technique, to improve performance. So we've gone through the previous 4 steps: systemic health, clinical biomechanics, we've looked at physical capacity, we've looked at psychology and focus, and today we're looking at number 5, which is metabolic fueling. Metabolic fueling. Now, if you haven't worked that out yet, that's just a fancy word for nutrition and hydration. So, how do we approach this? Well, again, we have 5 kind of clear steps of what we're looking towards. So, number 1, right at the start, we're looking at systemic health. We've covered this a little bit before, but we're looking at systemic health. Number 2, we're looking at digestive tolerance. Okay, digestive tolerance. Number 3, we're looking at core nutrition habits. Core nutrition habits. We're then looking at number 4, performance fueling. Performance. I'll keep it easier because I can't even write much anymore these days. Performance. Excuse my handwriting. And number 5, we're looking at optimization. Performance optimization. Okay. And we kind of look at it in these 5 kind of steps. Now, everyone wants to jump to these 2 up here. How do I fuel for performance? How do I optimize performance? How do I biohack? How do I do all these things? Well, that's irrelevant because most of the time, most people will sit in these 3 areas here. In fact, most people won't even get out of stage number 1 up the top here. So, what are these top 3s? If I split it off right down the middle here, this is the core area to focus on first. These 3 habits here, these are the habits you're going to have in life. And that's important. When we talk about nutrition and hydration, it's about behavioral habits and behavioral change. I'm not looking at meal plans, not looking at calorie counting or macros. That kind of comes into optimization down here. We're looking at the basics of human life. So let's look at number 1. Let's look at systemic health. Now, we've touched on this before, right? So, systemic health, number 1, WWS. Walk, water, sleep, 777 rule. Are we walking minimum 7,000 steps a day? Are we drinking 7 glasses of water a day? And are we sleeping 7 hours a night? Because in the world of nutrition, if we don't have those basics in place, everything else becomes irrelevant. We need to move blood, and help fuel properly, help remove all the waste products in the lymphatic system. We need to drink water because it is the foundation of life. We need to drink water. And if we don't sleep, well, 7 hours a night at least consistently, then everything else goes out the window, right? In fact, we just talk about sleep alone. In the world of nutrition and athleticism and the highest levels of sports, they know that if we don't sleep 7 hours plus a night, cognitive behavior is impaired. We have a massive issue with making better decisions on the field. Injury risk skyrockets. But in terms of fueling, we make poorer choices, poor food choices, right? And we consume too much calories or too much energy, okay? Because that's what sleep does to us. So if we haven't got these basics in place of drinking enough water, moving enough to help fuel our body and move away and bring blood around the body and take away waste products, and sleeping enough here, everything else becomes impaired. So we really need those basics in place. And you'd be surprised how few people actually have those systems in place, particularly older cricketers who have families, okay? Because sleep, it's easy for me to say it, but it's much harder in practice to make it achieve. So we're going to figure out strategies around that when it comes to it. But that is the foundation of everything we're looking at here. WWS, we talk about systemic health. You've got to have that in place. So If we have number 1, which is WWS, and I'll make a little start up here, WWS. Number 2 is digestive tolerance. What does that mean? Well, I can talk to you from personal experience till the cows come home. No pun intended right now. But digestive intolerances, what foods can you tolerate? That is important. It's not just about being allergic to food, it's about the intolerances you may have to food as well. Now, good example is with me. My whole life, I've been allergic to dairy, specifically the type of protein in dairy. It's A1 protein, casein and whey, which is why I can't have whey shakes or whey protein powders because it makes it even worse for me, right? So I have huge intolerances when it comes to dairy. I have a wheat and gluten insensitivity and alcohol. Now, I'll dive into depth about that another time if you meet me in the pub with my non-alcoholic beverage, and I'll tell you all about it. But I know a lot about this from personal experience. Digestive intolerances cause havoc in cognitive behavior and making better decisions when we're working with athletes and playing the game. Let's take an example. Someone who has back pain, right, could be intolerant to a food, which causes more inflammation, a lot of water weight, which makes that pain even worse, and manifests even worse, and makes technique poorer. Right, that's a very sharp example. You may have IBS issues. You may have, in terms of a lot of people, a gluten intolerance you may not be aware of that causes you to feel sleepy mid-afternoon. It impairs cognitive behavior, cognitive decisions. So for us, what we like to look at is your digestive tolerance to work out, is there any foods that you're allergic to or highly sensitive to? Because it could lead to problems that you may not be aware of, okay? Health problems you may not be aware of, but more importantly, helping you make better decisions on the cricket field. So, nutrition is interesting, right? There's a load of polarizing viewpoints like religion, politics, and guns if you're in America, okay? So we've got to be careful what we do here and how we hire. But from what we know, everyone's nutritional system is slightly different. If we could have 100 people in the room and they could all react differently to certain foods. So what we want to look at is, do people have intolerances to food? And if so, what are they? We'll do another video about this in depth, but what we tend to see most of the time with people is they have one of the following. There tends to be 1, dairy, specifically the type of protein in dairy. Number 2, wheat, gluten. Number 3, soy. Number 4, eggs. And number 5, nuts. For example, peanuts. So they're kind of the top 5. If we're looking at here now, you may have all 5 of them. You may have none of them. We don't know, but it's worth exploring. You may have other sensitivities, but we need to explore them and figure out what it is, because that helps us make better decisions. You may find that you'll lose weight automatically by taking one of these foods out because you have less histamine, less water weight, and it's actually quite a big deal. So again, that's a very short nutrition topic on the idea of the digestive intolerance, but it gives you an idea of where I'm going with this. And for those who are interested, we'll do more videos later down the line. So if I write this again, digestive tolerance, digestive tolerances or intolerances as the case may be. Now, number 3, core nutrition habits. Core nutrition habits. Wowzers. Okay, so we're going to split this into even more of a breakdown, essentially. But number 1, when we look at core nutrition habits, is hydration again. We're going from WWS, or it's 7 glasses of water, to our athletes drinking enough to fuel and perform, because even the slightest bit of dehydration, 1 to 2%, leads to huge cognitive impair. Is that the right word? Impair? But you make poor decisions essentially when you're playing, and that's been researched until the cows come home, right? So if we're not drinking enough, so in a rough idea, women 2.5 to 2.7, 3 litres, and men 3 to 4 litres. Okay, so 3 to 4 litres for men, and I'd say 2.5, 2.5 to 3 for women, for females. Okay. And in terms of hydration, are we having enough electrolytes, enough salt? Because a lot of times people struggle to absorb water. Again, lots of older cricketers, you'll find that they drink 3 to 4 litres of water during the day. They're going to be up all night peeing because they're unable to absorb the actual water. So they may need some electrolytes or some salts or something to help water absorption. Or they may have gut issues, which is stopping them from absorbing the water in the first place. So something to bear in mind of. So we have hydration. Number 2 then is energy. Now what do I mean by energy? I'm talking about how many calories do we need? Because most of the time, are we overeating or under eating? And we need to kind of work that out. How much food are you having a day? Now, a lot of the times we're seeing men overeating, and a lot of young cricketers we're working with are undereating, right? And that's something to be really, really conscious of. So after you start drinking more water, you tend to find a lot of people stop overeating because they're drinking a lot of water and it replaces that idea of thirst. But we need to be aware of energy. Are we overeating or undereating? Doesn't mean we're calorie counting or doing anything like that. That comes under optimization. But we need to have a rough idea of how much food we need to have. Because if we're overeating, we'll put on weight, which will impact performance. And if we're undereating, we're not having a food, which is going to affect our psychology and focus, and therefore we're not going to perform at the highest levels either. So we look at energy and basic energy to work out and figure out roughly where we should be eating. Then we go to food quality. If you can read my handwriting. So food quality is a big thing. Are we eating minimally processed foods? High quality protein, high quality carbohydrates, high quality fats. And are we eating vegetables and fruit? It's very simple things. It's not about how much of it or what it is, but are we eating that, right? And we've got to break that down even more into proteins, carbs, fats, and vegetables and fruits, okay? I'm not looking at anything more other than those basic things. Where are we coming from? Because let's just take chicken breast from the butchers. I'm sorry if I've offended any vegans out there or anyone else there. By the way, I eat a lot of vegan food because of my dairy intolerance. Okay, so if we eat chicken from the butchers, there's going to be a lot less calories, a lot more protein tend to be, and a lot less all sorts inside that chicken. Okay, it tends to be a better quality bit of protein. Whereas if we go for breaded chicken from Tesco's, Sainsbury's, or anywhere here now, it's going to be higher calories because all the breaded wheat chicken on top of it. It may lead to wheat. If we're looking at that, you may have a wheat intolerance you may not be aware of, but there's going to be more calories in this. And also may not leave you as full. Carbs, where are we getting our carbs from? Is it from minimally processed carbohydrates like rice, potatoes, or are we getting it from pizzas, chocolate, crisps, that lark? Where is that coming from? Fats, where are we getting our fats from? Nuts? We're getting some from some avocados, or are we getting it from a whole load of processed foods in terms of that? So again, I'm trying to keep it as simple as I possibly can do in terms of this. And are we eating enough vegetables? I challenge you to eat a kilo of carrots. A, it'll be minimum amount of calories, and B, it's pretty hard to go through, okay? So when we tend to improve our food quality, food consumption goes down, particularly in terms of energy, because we're eating better quality food that makes us feel fuller for longer. I challenge you, right? I challenge you, eat a chicken breast 2 to 3 times a day. I know it's going to be expensive for a lot of people. That's a different challenge altogether, but compare it to processed bought chicken, i.e. breaded chicken or the equivalent of KFC, right? So it makes a huge difference in what we're doing here. So we're trying to work in this order. Hydration first, then we look at what we need, how much energy you actually need, then we look at food quality, trying to make the behavioral changes here, which then means meal structure. So I wipe this off a little bit here. Are we eating minimally processed foods? And then we go into meal structure. Meal structure. Because in here, then we're specifically looking at how much protein are you having protein every meal? Are you having basic carbohydrates every meal? Are you having basic fats every meal? And are you having fruits and vegetables with every meal? So these four kind of go hand in hand. And most of the time, these are the basics of life. If we get this right, we can start making better decisions. It can then improve our gut health, which also relates to pain. And we can then start keeping on the top of the basics of what we're trying to do each and every day, which then relates back to performance and the psychology and focus aspect of what we're doing. Because if we're eating well, we're feeling great, we're making better decisions, which allows us to perform better, train harder, play longer, recover faster. It helps us to move better because a lot of the time, if we have intolerance to certain foods, it can give us achy joints. Again, people with arthritis in their older years, foods can impact all that sort of stuff. So we're looking at health, we're looking at performance, but metabolic fueling is multi-layered. It is very, very complex, but we try and make it as simple as possible and trying to get the basics right. So, as I said, there's two layers. WWS, systemic health, digestive tolerances. We're looking for this. We may be working with a nutrition expert. I'm a nutrition coach, but I'm not a nutritionist or dietitian. We may need to refer out to a medical professional to help understand that a bit more. Then we look at the core nutrition habits: hydration, energy, food quality, and then meal structures. And then, only then, can we look at number 4, performance fueling, which means pre-post workouts, pre-post training, pre-post matches. And then we look at number 5, optimization, where optimization is all about how many calories specifically do we need. How many is a great phrase to use because how many calories? And then we look at the macros: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and fiber, if you want to include that as well. So that optimization is what we call a level 5 skill. There's lots of steps to get here before we even attempt to do high-end optimization. Notice I haven't even talked about meal plans, food prep. There's no point. We can do food suggestions and ideas, and we'll do separate videos because a lot of parents want to know, what do I feed my kids on match days? Because they travel miles and miles and miles, and they obviously have to stop in service stations to get their kids food. We can talk about strategies, but the basics in terms of metabolic fueling all lie here, and they all impact your technique, because if we're underfueled, we're not going to perform at the best. If we're underhydrated, we're not going to perform at our best, right? So that is a very quick overview of our entire system of what we're looking at in terms of metabolic fueling. So remember, it's pillar 5 for a good reason most of the time, because it's one of the hardest things to change, because it's behavioral change as opposed to an easy modeling of the action where people want to go and do it, right? It's very hard. You're tired, you're sleepy, you've got a bit of a cold. What are you going to reach for? You're going to reach for comfort food. So it's a really hard, advanced skill to have, and it's the reason why it's number 5 on our chart. So remember, technique is in the middle. We have 1, health. We have number 2, we have biomechanics, call it bio. 3, physical capacity. Then we look at psychology and focus. And then we're looking at metabolic fueling down here for step 5. But they all impact your technique. They all impact how you perform match day, but it's a bit more complex than we've tried to lay out here. And I don't give it justice in this short video that I've done now, but it gives you an idea of where it sits in our whole performance flywheel. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and press that bell notification if you can. And again, that's an oversight into our 5 performance flywheel steps impacting technique on Blackboard Friday. And we'll be back next week for another episode. See you then.